Let's go, Matty! I woke up to some absolutely incredible news this morning. Matt DiBenedetto will be returning to Wood Brothers Racing next season, and I'm pretty happy to say the least. Obviously, you guys know me, big Matty D fan. Matty D, Guido, DiBurRITO, whatever you want to call him. Yeah, so happy that he's got a ride next year, and but he will be out of the car after the 2021 season. We'll talk about that. But I think that Team Penske, Wood Brothers Racing, Menards, whoever made that decision, I think that this is a good decision logistically. Obviously, if it was up to me, I'd keep Matty D in that car forever. But I don't run the operations, obviously. But yeah, so Matt DiBenedetto will be in the 21 car for one more year. And then they will move on to Austin Cindric, the young driver who's currently driving in the Xfinity Series. And Austin Cindric will make a few starts in the Cup Series next year. So look out for that. But as I said, Wood Brothers this morning announced Matt DiBenedetto will be returning for the 2021 season in the famous number 21 car. So they said after a successful first season, driving for NASCAR's longest-running team, Wood Brothers Racing announced that today that Matt DiBenedetto will return to compete in the famed number 21 Ford Mustang in the 2021 Cup Series. Woo! Yeah, let's go. Obviously, Matt DiBenedetto, he's had a good year. He made the playoffs. He's got 8 top 10s, I believe, 3 top 5s, a couple runner-up finishes. It would have been 3 runner-up finishes if it wasn't for the penalty at Talladega. So he hasn't had like a out of this world year, but to say he's had a bad year or even an average year, I would say, is a little bit of an understatement. I think he's had a good solid year. Making the playoffs is a big deal for this team. It's the first time this team has made the playoffs since 2017 with Ryan Blaney. And people are like, don't get me wrong, I think this is a really good team. I think this team should be making the playoffs. Maybe get a win every once in a while, but I don't think they're definitely not as good as a Penske. They're affiliated team. They're definitely not as good as a Joe Gibbs, Stewart Haas, Hendrick Motorsports. They're not a top tier team, but they're just below that, I think. So to act like he's in a top tier team not winning is a little ridiculous in my opinion, because this team's won twice in the last 10 years with Trevor Bayne in the Daytona 500 and Ryan Blaney at Pocono. So there are people that treat it like this is like the best ride in the Cup Series. It's really not. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still think it's a solid ride, a great opportunity for DiBenedetto. I'm just defending. I'll see stuff that'll say, oh, Matty D should have won by this point. He should have won in this car already. I'm saying if you look at the stats compared to Paul Menard and Ryan Blaney, the last 2 drivers of this car in their first season, in Ryan Blaney's rookie season, he had 3 top 5s and 9 top 10s. You look at Paul Menard's first season in this car, he did not do well. I think he had 2 top 5s and maybe 3 or 4 top 10s overall. Matt DiBenedetto has tied the top 5s with Blaney, and he's 1 away from tying the top 10s, and he's still got, 4 or 5 races left this season. So definitely I think he's having a good, solid year, and I think it's good to give him an opportunity for an extra year. As I said, you look at his stats versus Menard and Blaney in their first year with the Wood Brothers. Blaney took a big step forward in his second year, got a couple more top 5s, got a win, got up to 15 top 10s, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I think it was about 15 and 14, 15, somewhere around there. So he took a step up, and I think Matt DiBenedetto, you got to remember, this has not been a normal NASCAR season. About 4 races into the season, we stopped everything. We went off for 2 months due to the COVID stuff, and then we came back, and it wasn't like normal. No fans, obviously, but then you have the on-track, that was different. No practice, no qualifying, no getting to kind of learn about your team, no getting to get to know your team, how you guys work together. So they never got that opportunity outside of the first 4 races. So obviously they have not had a normal opportunity that a team and a driver with their first year, they've not had a normal first year together. They've not really gotten to figure out that team. I think it's just starting to come around a little bit. They're starting to figure each other out a little bit. So I think giving him an extra year is definitely the right move, because then all that work would have been for nothing if you didn't return him. So I think that's a really good move. You've got a year under your belt, even though it's a really weird year. Next year's going to be a little bit more normal. It's a little bit, even though there are more one-day shows, no practice, no qualifying, you're still going to be used to it. You've been through this before. You've been to these tracks. I know there's a lot of new tracks, but some of the tracks that you've been to, you know what it's like to go there without practice or qualifying. You know how Matt DiBenedetto likes his car now. You know more than you did coming into this year. So I think that's a big deal for that team to get a second year with Matt DiBenedetto. I think that's a great move. And then the Austin Cindric move, Austin Cindric putting him in a few cup races next year, I think that's also a good move. I'm assuming some of those are going to be road courses since he's a really good road course driver. But Penske, the thing about this situation is I think Matt DiBenedetto is a very talented driver, and the fact that he does not have the job security, I guess you could say, is unbelievable. I mean, I know sponsors play a big deal. Matt DiBenedetto doesn't have that many sponsors with him, but I think it's ridiculous that a driver of his talent, his skill set, does not have a locked-up ride for the long term, that he can't consistently get long-term rides. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. We saw last year with Levine Family Racing, he competed for a freaking win at Bristol. This year, he's had a good year. He's competed for wins in both Las Vegas races. He took the white flag and he tried his best, but he almost had the win at Talladega this past weekend. So it's like Chase Elliott used to say when he got all those runner-up finishes. It's not luck that he's always up there. I mean, it's not luck. He's been up there, 4 or 5 times competing for the win. He's gotten top 5s. Career years the past 2 years when it comes to leading laps, top 5s, top 10s. So Matt DiBenedetto has definitely shown that he deserves to be in a better cup ride than a Go Fast Racing or a BK Racing. He deserves, I think, right now to be in a car about at the level he is and has for some more time to prove himself. And this move that they're going to make after next year, which will be Austin Cindric moving to the 21 car in the 2022 season, I think that's a good move because as I said, I think Matt DiBenedetto is a really good driver. I think he deserves a ride, a good quality ride, not a BK Racing kind of ride. But when you have Austin Cindric in your camp in the lower series, you don't want to lose a hold of him, because let's say that Austin Cindric next year, they re-sign Matt DiBenedetto for a multi-year contract, and they don't open a 4th car for Austin Cindric. Other teams are going to want Austin Cindric. Austin Cindric has, 6 or 7 wins in the Xfinity Series this year. He swept Kentucky. He's won at short tracks. He's won everywhere. So it's not like he's just winning at one type of track. He's winning at multiple types of track, and he's the championship favorite along with Chase Briscoe. So to lose a driver like that would be absurd. So I think that's a good move to move him up in 2 years and give him some select cup races next year, because, you want to get him some cup rides, give him a feel, a little bit of what the field's like. But I also think it's a good move to wait until 2022 to move up Austin Cindric, because let's say they let go of Matt DiBenedetto this year, and next year they put Austin Cindric in the 21. Austin Cindric would be in a car that's only going to drive for 1 year. We go to the next gen car in 2022. I'm not going to say it'd be 100% completely pointless, but why would you put Austin Cindric in that car to drive a full year in a car he's never going to drive again? It's not completely pointless, but I think they shouldn't give Austin Cindric a car, race 38 races in it, 36 of course with the regular season, then the 2 non-points paying races, I guess. Why give him all those races to drive in that car, to figure that car out in a full year, just for him to say, oh yeah, by the way, at the end of the year, you don't have to remember anything you do, and you're going to have to learn this new car next year too. So 2 rookie years, basically. I think that's definitely not pointless, but it definitely would have been a bleh move. I don't think it would have been a great move on their part, because you give him a rookie year and then everyone's a rookie in the next gen car. Why not just make that his rookie season? So I think that's a good move there. And it also gives Matt DiBenedetto some time to prove himself, to say, hey, I want to be in a good ride. And next year, Matt DiBenedetto, I think if he wants a very competitive ride, if he wants to stay in this level right here, whether it be Wood Brothers, Chip Ganassi, anything like that, I think that he does have to, he's going to have to go out and win next year. I'm not going to say that he has to have a championship year. He's going to have to win 6 or 7 races, but I think he's going to have to make the playoffs again. I think he's going to have to do that. And I think he is going to have to win his first career race next year in order to get a competitive ride. The way it's going right now, he doesn't have the sponsorship. I love him, but he doesn't have the sponsorship. And, when you sign a driver, you want him to bring some sponsorship with you so you don't have to go looking for sponsorship. And honestly, it's going to be a big year next year for Matt DiBenedetto. So obviously you got some great opportunities for him next year. He's great at the short tracks, the road courses. We saw it in 2019. We saw it a little bit this year. So I think next year's a big year for him. And then he's also got some good plate races that he's done at, obviously Talladega this year. So I think that next year he's going to have to get that first win and also make the playoffs if he does want to stay in a competitive ride once he leaves. But this is overall a great move, I think, from both organizations, Wood Brothers and Team Penske. To put Austin Cindric part-time next year, just to kind of like let him feel out the Cup drivers, like, hey, how does it feel to race against these guys? How does it feel? What's it like to race against Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr., Alex Bowman, Ryan Blaney, all those guys? What's it like to work with them? What's it like to race against them? So I think that's a good move on their part. Obviously, I mean, I don't know how good this car is going to be. I don't know how much they're going to invest in it. I don't know if it's going to be like Chase Elliott in 2015. He gets 5 races or whatever, but he's in a Hendrick car that's going to run 20th and 20th. So I really don't know how competitive this car is going to be. But if it is at a bunch of road courses, I think he could potentially crack out a top 10. But yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for Austin Cindric. And then obviously Matt DiBenedetto staying an extra year. I explained that. Told you that he needs a second year to kind of mesh with the team. He didn't get that at Levine Family Racing. He was only there for 1 year. So it was 1 year, get out. But for this, he's getting his second year. He's getting his second big opportunity. They've been a year together. Next year's a big year for that team. So I have some high expectations for him, and I expect them to do well next year. I think this is good. Once again, I think it's a really good move. And Austin Cindric to the 21. Penske cannot let him leave their grasp, man. That's a guy you don't want to lose. So good move by Penske to put in a plan for him to say, hey, look, you're not going to be full-time Cup next year. You're not going to be competing for a championship next year, but we're going to keep you in the Xfinity Series. We're going to do some part-time Cup Series, and you're going to stay there for a year, okay? But after that, you do have a locked-up guaranteed ride under our organization in 2022 and beyond. So, and also you got to think about Matt DiBenedetto. If he were to stay in that organization, they would have to rather expand for a 4th car, or they would have to get rid of one of their 3 drivers. And their 3 drivers are 2 champions, Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano, and of course their young star Ryan Blaney. And I don't see that happening unless Keselowski's on like a 1-year deal and he wants to leave after next year. I don't know. So I don't see any of those guys leaving, to be honest, and the only other way was to put Austin Cindric in that car. So I think this is a good move overall by both sides to keep DiBenedetto in the car and to eventually move Austin Cindric up. So thanks for watching. I'm really happy for Matt DiBenedetto. I'm going to order a hat here soon. I didn't want to order a hat prematurely just for him to get booted out of his ride and have a 21 Matt DiBenedetto hat that would never be used again, but I'll get a good use of that out of that this year and next year. Other than that, I got nothing else today unless some big news pops up. Let's see. Nothing on Twitter so far. Yeah, but that's the news I got today. I'm really happy for Matt DiBenedetto. Obviously, there's a lot of people happy for Matt DiBenedetto. He deserves to be in the Cup Series. He deserves to be in a competitive ride. So hopefully he can get a ride for next year or 2022, whatever year that is. And he can get a win next year. So, yeah, let's go Matty D.